All right, we're streaming.
Okay.
How's that?
What's with the what's with the black banner background?
So, funny story. Since we're not recording, but we are kind of recording. Basically, Dan, when I started hosting the Grinders Live with him, he wanted to look all professional, so like he made us get black background because he had one as well.
Right.
And like I couldn't feature the fake tree. So it was it just didn't work well. However, I found that like when I do the full screen, like it covers the door really well, so it makes the room look bigger than it is. And if someone like comes in, they'll see a giant curtain, and they can't like have, they can't have like a surprised look on their face.
There we go.
So that's the story. Hopefully we can get Scott on here.
He's too busy counting all his monies. He's just diving into a big money pit.
Yeah, man. He had I sent you that link last night, so I was like, dang it, I wish I would have played the 109. But then it's really hard to get upset when you see Scott like ahead of you. And Nap and I tied too. Then I was like, well, I can't be upset because if anybody should be upset, it's Scott.
I finished third in the freaking swag dome, and I won my qualifier.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I was like two. Well, some guy had like the same lineup as me. I promise I didn't give it to him. Those listening and keeping track of that kind of stuff. But I forget what his name was. But Kush something. I don't know. He had the same lineup as me, and but like when I'm going down, it was like 2 or 3 out of 100, and it was always Scott ahead of me, like in each one of those.
Nice night last night, man.
Thanks. I was trying to resist Wiggins telling me that I had to play DeMarcus Cousins all night, and then at 5 o'clock I'm watching this show, and Davis is on there saying I have to play Cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dink saw. I sent Dink.
Never saw that Anderson Brazier news.
I sent Dink a link last night to my score that you're in. He said, "How is nobody beating that lineup?" I was like, "Well, it's because people decided to fade Boogie." But even if Boogie did have a nice game, I wouldn't have won because Munstradamus had like a bunch of teams up there at the top.
Yeah, that's what cost me the $11 golden ticket game was his like 700 lineups in that game.
Gosh, it was
ridiculous. He had like every combination of players that I thought of.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing. When he obviously had the core 4 of Noah, Kamen, Taj, well, core 3, I guess. But anyways, yeah, I felt pretty good about the show yesterday, doing it with Davis. Most of my picks came true and his did not, but he was so cranky that it just made his wrong picks even more satisfying. So, anyways.
I just thought your comment about how you could play it safe with Dwayne Wade at like 3 minutes into the show was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and then he corrected me, and I said, "Sure." Like he did get some stuff right, like about the way but I just would agree with him. Like, yeah, you're right. After making that point, like there are some points where he just like what, like that one quote we said, "What is wrong with you?" So
it was pretty entertaining yesterday, though.
He was very entertaining, and that's really what we're here for. So, let's go ahead and start the show. Alrighty. 13 seconds. For those in the chat, you can also view this on YouTube. We are on YouTube Live right now. Unfortunately, like, people are going to see from the minute. I still haven't gotten used to it. So, like, it happened. Like, it's been streaming for 6 minutes. So, people that are watching the replay are just going to see nothing for the first 6 minutes. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Come on, girl. Yeah, it's me, Jackie Moon. Let's fill the bathtub full of sweat. All right. Baby, who wants to love me sexy? Love me sexy. Baby, are you ready to lick me sexy? Lick me sexy. Take off your shoes and suck me sexy. Suck me sexy. Baby, we're naked and we're humping sexy.
I don't know why I had the camera on you the whole time, Scott. Maybe subconsciously, maybe.
All those sexy lineups.
All right, it was a perfect theme song today, the Love Me Sexy by Jackie Moon, because of the conversation that we've been having on Twitter. How did this even get started? Is it Renee that started the whole top 5 sexy players in the NBA, Drew?
Well, yeah, Renee brought up Nick Batum not getting enough credit.
No, Steph Curry, I thought.
No, I think it was Batum.
I thought it was Curry.
And she was talking about him not getting enough credit in the hottest NBA player rankings. And then I joked, saying, well, who comes in after Chris Kaman? And then I said, I'm actually interested in knowing what your rankings would be like. And now it's taken a whole different turn. So Renee is apparently going to post a final list. She originally was asked to do a top 10, but I think she's narrowed it down to a top 5. But she's one of the best follows on Twitter.
She's so entertaining. If you're not following Renee or or Young Kaiser or Sports for Steve, all those guys, they kind of make Twitter for me. But anyways, yeah, it has taken a whole life of its own. You have like 2 guys in the big NBA circle, as Davis would say, basketball Twitter. Kyle McCown with RotoWire and then Mike Gallagher with Roto World. So now they're in it. So yeah, it's kind of taken a life of its own. However, we're not here to talk about the top 5 sexy basketball players. We're here to be sexy and discuss the sexy plays of the day on the Daily Fantasy NBA show, sponsored by DraftDay. Drew, can you just show your t-shirt? You stand up a little. There you go. Drew,
my DraftDay swag.
Drew Dinkmeyer from Roto Experts. He writes. He and Mike Leone do the fantasy rundown there. And then, speaking of DraftDay, Scott Malwig at sports_25 to life. And both of you guys had pretty successful nights in the industry last night, so we're just going to keep it going. That's what we're going to do. We're going to keep it going, and we're going to kind of roll it over into tonight, if that's okay with you.
I sure hope so. I'd love to finish the first half of the NBA season on a strong note, because this last week and a half for me has been challenging. So last night, I'm hoping to turn the tide a little bit.
Are we only halfway there, Scott?
I think we're a little over halfway, right?
Yeah, it's the usual
everybody's
NBA.
played like 50.
Yeah, it's the usual NBA thing where we're actually 60% of the way, 60 to 65% of the way through the season, but the All-Star break is technically, people think it, when you do first half, second half splits, a lot of people use the All-Star break.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then you kind of got my hopes up by saying a halfway point. I was like, all right, halfway. But no, we're past the halfway point. The good news is everything's happening early. We got news that's already come out, and we've got Scott that's already come out with his day before tomorrow article beforehand. So we're ready. We're ready to rock. I don't even know if anyone says that anymore. I just said it though.
You played Kid Rock yesterday, so
I
you
did.
can do anything you want now.
And I felt so old because Davis was like, I don't know if I've ever heard of this. And this was like my jam in the year 2000.
I
Rolling
don't
down
understand how
the.
Davis hasn't heard of that. He's not that much younger than me, and I own that CD.
No, he's only 21 or 22. He's 21, I think.
So he's like 3 years younger than me.
Yeah. Yeah, he said he was only 8 though when the album came out, so I fault him.
I was like 12, so I guess that makes more sense. I guess you wouldn't really want to listen to that song when you were 8.
Yeah. So big news today that has come out. Really, Bogut being out has opened the doors for people to go back to Mo Spates and of course Draymond Green, and then Tony Parker not going to play. I kind of facetiously, half-heartedly joking, somewhat serious, said to Drew earlier, Joe in all caps. And he just basically asked me why. I said, I don't know.
Well, my first reaction was like, somebody else has to be out other than just Tony Parker for you to have confidence to play Corey Joseph.
So we also have the whole Bucks news. And Scott, I'll kind of let you take over what's happening with that Bucks rotation.
Nothing's happening with it. They only have like 7 guys. I don't even know if you can call it a rotation tonight if Ilyasova's out. I mean, who are they going to have up front? I think it's like
Walters and Knight and everybody else.
Yeah, they're going to have Walters, Knight, and Gary Neal, and then Middleton, Pachulia. I don't know how to say Miroslav's last name.
Raduljica.
Okay, Raduljica. And then there's one more guy I know I'm missing. I have 7.
Giannis.
I don't know if Giannis. Okay. That's 7 for me. I don't know if I'm missing one.
And the game is only a 7-point spread.
Yeah, because New Orleans is terrible.
Still, though, it's the Bucks, and they only have 7 players. Like, I was kind of like the
You're
two.
You're also forgetting Ridnour, so they could have 8 if they ever choose to play Ridnour.
Did he get hurt, or did he just not play the other night, or what?
They said he was healthy last game. He could have played.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him.
So
he's the only guy in Milwaukee that doesn't get to play. Like, anybody else in the uniform is a viable, not only option to play like 15 minutes, but start for them, except Luke Ridnour.
Well, didn't Ridnour start like 8 games in a row at one point when he was just the best player on the Bucks?
Yeah.
He had that big double-double in like his first start, and then everyone played him for like a week straight.
You have Drew's crush with Nate Walters. You love Nate.
Walters.
You love him. So, like, he is in play for me tonight, as is Brandon Knight. But on the other side, like Anthony Davis and Lord help me, but Tyreek Evans, is like they were on my radar. Of course, like Anthony Davis tonight is kind of like my must play as far as the big men. Like, I don't think you want to go cheap. There's tons of value out there. I don't think you want to go cheap on the big men. That's just my opinion. I think again, it's like kind of the same philosophy as go cheap at the small forward position and maybe even like that middle tier at the shooting guard position. Thoughts on that, Drew, tonight, just with the positions?
I think, I think for the most part I would agree with that. And Anthony Davis would probably be my target as well. I could make an argument that you could go one like on FanDuel or DraftDay where you have multiple power forward slots. You could go one expensive and one cheap, or not cheap, but like mid tier. Like I could make that argument, but I think you need at least one expensive power forward power forward in your lineup today. The only other exception for me on small forward is if you want to pay for LeBron. He's playing really, really well. The matchup isn't great because he'll probably have Iguodala on him the whole game. And Iggy forced him into like 8 turnovers in their first game. But he's the only other guy, at the small forward position that I'd consider spending on. I think there's a lot of value to be had at the wings. And then you talked about it with like Walters or Kalathis. There's a lot of cheap options at point guard too.
Scott?
Yeah, I generally agree with that. That's how I've been building my preliminary lineup so far. I don't particularly like LeBron a ton. I would just rather pay for both Davis and Love if I'm going to pay up that much for someone tonight. There's a lot of mid-range value out there too, so I'm just not a huge LeBron guy tonight. I do agree that he's playing really well. He played great last night. I saw the guy that ended up winning that $11 showcase game on DraftKings had that like Ray Allen, LeBron, Chris Bosh stack, which I have no idea how he either late swapped into that or just went with it and just assumed Wade was going to be out. But
I totally
I think
last night because I was at the symphony with my wife because she works with the symphony group, and my phone
You don't have to
started
justify.
blowing up at 9 o'clock. And I'm sitting there while this concert is going on with my phone just blowing up, and I'm thinking, oh God, this is Dwayne Wade again. While I'm sitting in the middle, last time it was Wolf on Wall Street, this time it's a symphony. And sure enough, I get home and Dwayne Wade's sitting out.
And DeMarcus Cousins did nothing since you left. You
No,
leaving might have done
I left,
something because like he didn't.
In the first quarter.
Yeah, after the first quarter, he didn't score until the 6-minute mark. I think in the third, it was just terrible. His body language was so terrible last night. Like it's not like the season is a dramatic improvement over last season, but last night he looked like the old DeMarcus Cousins. Like just refused to play help side defense. Like when the Cavs were up like 10, it's like with every shot that Bennett hit, his like attitude just got worse and worse. Tonight, people are going to be off of DeMarcus Cousins, and on a few sites, like not on DraftDay, but like DraftKings especially, for me, he's playable tonight. Do you think people are going to go back to that well? Drew?
No, I don't think so. I think people respect Tyson Chandler as a defender, and all the defensive metrics, like team defensive versus position stuff, suggest that the Knicks are pretty good against centers, which we talked about during the early part of the season was just kind of mind-boggling. So I think he's probably going to be an under-owned player today.
Scott, are you having any shares of Boogie tonight?
I don't think I'll have him a ton. He's more of a tournament play to me. I think that he could easily have a huge game tonight, obviously. I just don't think there's any reason to pay for him when you can get like Anthony Davis for the same price, who's not on a back-to-back, part of Cousins' body language last night honestly looked like his ankle was still bothering him to me.
Scott, you're such a Boogie apologist. Stop it.
Oh, yeah. That's my biggest problem is I never play Cousins, so I'm always on the outside looking in when he has those big 65-point games. So,
yeah. Well, last night you were on top, looking down. Let's just move on past that. Let's see. Don't really know where I was going with that one. As far as some of these games going on tonight, as far as the big men, you've got LaMarcus, who is probable. Let's just go ahead and assume he's playing tonight. So you've got Love, Anthony Davis, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus, and even Melo, I guess, in that power forward position. Am I missing any big name or high-priced big guys?
Blake?
Blake.
Did you say Blake?
Oh, did I say Blake? If not, he's certainly on top of the list. So with those guys, how would you rank? Like, who would be your top 3 that you'd want to spend on tonight?
I really like Blake. I just don't love his price. I think my top 3 would be, if I'm just going by like general pricing across the industry, probably Davis, Love, Blake.
Drew?
For me, it's clear cut that Davis is first, and then I'm trying to kind of figure out how I rank the other group. The Kevin Love thing, like the matchup's great, and the price is still elevated but fine in a couple places. But I got burned by him last week sitting out that game that kind of came out of nowhere. And last game before an All-Star break, I'm just a little bit cautious of just any guy in general that is a little bit nicked up. There's really good excuses to just not have them play this game. Now I know Minnesota needs wins, like they're trying to make the playoffs, so they're already really banged up. And this is a game, against Denver in a team that they have to pass to get to the playoffs. So some of that risk should be taken out of the equation. But there was a lot of that scenario with Love on that Saturday night game. The only difference was that Saturday night game was a back-to-back. So I'm a little gun-shy after getting burned before. So I probably would rank Aldridge ahead of Love right now for me personally, and then Love and then Blake. But the LaMarcus and Blake thing is an interesting one for me because LA has been so bad inside defensively all season long that LaMarcus should thrive in this. But he looked terrible last night. So
yeah,
Davis is really the only one I have a ton of confidence in of that group, which is why I guess I said earlier that I could see going one expensive guy and one mid-tier guy at power forward.
So, would Drummond be in that middle tier kind of, or he's in the upper tier for you?
He's probably. I mean, it depends on price. Like on Draft Street at 17, that's more upper tier to me, high 17. On some other sites where he's closer to 15 or 16%, it's probably middle tier. Drummond should do what we thought Cousins, would do last night against that front line. It's just so small. And the other great thing about Cleveland without Verjao is the fact that they have nobody to threaten Drummond's foul trouble, really. I mean, Tyler Zeller's not going to get him in foul trouble, so hopefully I didn't just jinx it. But
please knock on wood. Please knock on wood.
Who's going to get him into the foul trouble, which is usually the big problem. I don't really see it, but
can Kyrie draw fouls on 3-point jumpers?
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not driving anymore. So.
I know.
For me, it would be Anthony Davis, and then Love, and then Blake. I really like all three of those guys tonight. Now, the point that you made about Kevin Love is a worthwhile point about him being kind of banged up, but them needing wins. I really think, if LaMarcus was not playing tonight, if he wasn't probable, I wouldn't be as high on Blake. I mean, the game's already a 9-point spread. You've got the Blazers, who are one game ahead of the Clippers. Last game they played went into overtime. But Blake Griffin is just kind of in a new stratosphere. He's just playing out of his mind. Second among power forwards in offensive efficiency. And post up numbers, he's second. And last year, you couldn't have said that. He has brought his game so far from last year. His price tag is very high. But I think we're seeing where his floor is starting to raise with that price tag. Even in a blowout against Philly, he still did really well. So I would feel comfortable with rostering Anthony Davis and Blake Griffin tonight and going value elsewhere. That's just me, though. I'm not saying you two have to steal my idea. That's just me. I want to put thoughts in your head.
And I know a lot of people are saying Aldridge, with the hip issue is just as much of a concern as Love. I understand that there's risk around Aldridge. I wouldn't say it's the same as Love because we've seen Love sit games. Aldridge, has he missed a game this year? I mean, he's played through a lot of stuff. If you want to classify the risk as the same performance-wise, I get that. But sitting out, I don't see them as the same risk-wise because we've already seen Love sit out a few games.
Yeah, agree. As far as big men for this Cleveland team, Anthony Bennett, will you have any shares of Anthony Bennett tonight? Last night was shooting out of his mind from outside, also doing some stuff on the inside. You have to think with kind of the change of leadership that they've had that they want to try to feature Bennett. So with that being said, while his price tag is still low, would Bennett be just a GPP play for you since there's other guys like Spates and Zaza? Scott?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at with him. I used him a little bit in that same capacity last night. Obviously, it worked out really well. But I mean, I just don't think you can count on him shooting that well. I don't think you can count on the minutes. I think there's just a lot of question marks there when there's so many other guys in the same price range, and some of them even cheaper, that you can get similar production, if not more production, from on some nights.
He's small forward eligible on draft day, and he's minimum salary. Like, for me, that's the one place that he's a must play for me is draft day at the small forward position. We talked about liking the big men that can play in that small forward spot, so that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Drew?
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. When you first brought it up, my initial inclination was I would only consider him as a tournament play, but a place where he has small forward eligibility, I think that certainly opens it up a little bit more, and he's minimum priced. I was looking at Draft Street, 6K. I would consider him for tournaments, but I probably wouldn't consider him for a main team. FanDuel, I wouldn't consider him with power forward eligibility for a main team. So tournaments. I think he's still pretty expensive on DraftKings, right? That's been the case kind of all year.
Yeah, they have something weird with their rookie projections, because someone else pointed out about Cody Zeller and Otto Porter and stuff, that they're all right around 5K and they've done nothing all year.
Yeah, he's at 4K. That's not that bad actually.
So he's definitely gone down, which is weird considering he's been playing now. But
yeah, so more of a tournament play for me. But I don't mind the play. I mean, Detroit is not good defensively. The thing with Bennett, I didn't watch the game last night, but people were saying he was being a little bit more aggressive in terms of driving, not just settling for jumpers. And him playing closer to the rim is going to be really key to his fantasy value. So if Verjau's injury opens that up, that makes him a worthwhile tournament play in my mind.
Yeah, he's definitely had a lot more confidence. I think that's really was a huge issue with him. When you tell reporters that you're not opposed to going to the D-League, as the number one pick, that just kind of speaks to your mentality as kind of being dejected. Last night, on Twitter, people, the first time he drove to the rim, all caps, he drove. It was a huge deal that he tried to go to the hoop. So maybe we see more of that. But I agree, he's kind of in that spot where he's more of a GPP play. The other Cavs, though, Kyrie he's not going to cut it for where his salary is for me. But Dang, Waiters, Tristan, Scott, thoughts on these three?
I like Waiters a lot, assuming CJ Miles is out, which I think they rule. Did they rule him out already? Does anybody know that off the top of their head?
I'm seeing him still.
He's questionable.
Okay, well, if CJ Miles is out, I like Waiters again. He's just taking so many shots right now. He's a volume guy. When he's only playing 30 minutes like he did last night. The 2 games before that, he played a little bit more minutes and was pretty solid also. I honestly like the matchup a little bit better for him tonight than I did last night even. Both are pretty solid, though. Outside of that, Kyrie's too expensive for me. I can't play Kyrie right now with how inconsistent he is. And, I mean, even with all the good matchups, last night against the Kings, that's a pretty good matchup. I know Andrew played him, and he just, it wasn't there. And it's been happening more and more often. Against the Lakers, we all played him. He got benched, obviously. If I can't predict what he's going to do against bad teams, I'm not going to try and play him against, average teams, especially for his price. The rest of the Cavs, I mean, Dang's underpriced everywhere, but you really never know what you're going to get from him at this point. He's kind of in that in-between spot where he's not a go-to scoring option, but every time he touches the ball, he's looking to score. So most of the time he's either having a really nice game or a really terrible one.
If he's not, well, I would just say that with the value to some of the other guys, you don't have to play these guys. Dang, the one place that I would play him is FanDuel. I think, you've got guys tonight that are specific plays depending on what the price and what the positional eligibility dictate. And I think that Dang is a small forward play. The other two, I don't think you have to play anywhere. It's more of a luxury, or if they kind of fit in that last space. But for me tonight, if I had to can't believe I'm even saying this, but if I had the choice to choose between the Bucks or the Cleveland players, like what a disgusting two options to have. But I guess I would go. You'd have to go with a team that's running 7 or 8 deep tonight, though, with a thin rotation that you know they're going to get minutes. Zaza is that guy for me on this Milwaukee team. Like he and Walters and Brandon Knight. I mean, how many shots is Brandon Knight going to take tonight? 22, 23?
I would think so, yeah.
If Gary Neal doesn't try to shoot every shot, whenever Gary Neal touches it, you just know, like, it's kind of like Kaman. Tonight, whenever Gary Neal touches it, I guarantee you he's going to have double-digit shot attempts tonight. It's just a given. He might only make 1 or 2, but he's letting them fly. He's doing the rain dance. R.I.P.
Yeah, Knight is averaging 19.4 field goal attempts in February, which is just 5 games. But for the season, he only averages 14.3. So that just goes to show when they're really thin. He's averaging 40 minutes and 19 field goal attempts, and his price isn't outrageous really anywhere. So I think he's a very strong play.
Now, as far as Giannis, like he really disappointed me last game when I rostered him. I thought he would do a little better. I can't take a flyer on Giannis tonight with such a big variety of games. Scott, are you in that same boat?
Yeah, I mean, I almost always play Middleton rather than Giannis. He just ends up with more minutes and more shots most of the time. If Ilyasova's out, I think Middleton's a really, really good play tonight because they use him a lot of power forward when they're shorthanded. I would be surprised if he didn't get 35 minutes tonight if Ilyasova's out.
Dang over Jeff Green tonight. We haven't talked about this Celtics game, but I would say yes for Dang over Green. Like, I don't feel great about either of those two options, but Rondo is going to be back tonight, and I know how Rondo helps Jeff Green, but when there's no Rondo and there's no Avery Bradley, like it was the Jeff Green show. Like, if Rondo's going to play, Jeff Green's not going to have as good of a game as if he's going to be the only playmaker out there. So I would go Dang over Green. Drew?
Yeah, I think I'd do the same. I mean, I think Dang's at a cheaper price point on most places across the industry, and I like him a little bit more anyway. So I'd probably let price be my decider.
Any concern about playing Rondo? He's expensive on a few sites, like not going to be rostering on FanDuel, not going to be rostering him on DraftDay, but like DraftKings, he is in that 6 to 7K range. Thoughts on him with like what's going on with his body right now?
Yeah, I mean San Antonio struggled to defend point guards, for most of the season. And it's not like Corey Joseph or, Patty Mills are great defenders. And the last 3 games for Rondo, 35-plus fantasy points in each of them, basically approaching a triple-double in all 3, just shy of them on the rebound side. So, yeah, I think if you can still find him at like 12, 13% of the cap, that's a pretty good price. And on DraftKings is one of the few sites that you can still find that. So that wouldn't bother me at all.
Scott, agree?
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, well, then we don't want to spend any more time. You just trying to one-up Drew. By the way, Scott, I love the lean you've got going on. Like, that's just like a confident lean. It's like swag. Like, you can tell that you won a lot last night because it's like, what's up?
It's better than nervously approaching the camera.
Yes, and rocking back and forth. Colin wanted to ask about a small forward punt play and listed Buttinger or Singler. And I was talking to our buddy Steve because he had like the same sort of question about who would you rather punt. And for me, I'd rather punt Draymond Green and Jeremy Evans than these two. If you're punting, like there's like those 4 for me are like the small forward punts tonight. Who would be the 2 out of the 4, Drew, that you would take?
Draymond would definitely be the top guy for me of the group. He just has to play a ton, and they're with no Bogut, with no Jermaine O'Neal, and against Miami, who likes to play small, he's going to be one of the bodies they throw at LeBron. So the risk is foul trouble, and I never really liked taking guys against LeBron, but for a minimum price tag, I don't mind doing it, especially if you're forced into a small forward. Singler's an interesting one because his minutes have been a little bit more consistent since he's moved into the starting lineup, and Cleveland is generally kind of terrible. So I wouldn't mind him. He'd probably rank second. Jeremy Evans would be the guy that I'd more consider for tournaments. I used him on DK last night on my main team because he was 3,000 and there weren't a lot of guys at 3,000. And I wouldn't mind doing that again on DK today. But on a site like FanDuel, where there's similar guys like Draymond Green or Singler in kind of a similar price range, I'd probably rank him third, even though I do like the matchup a lot with Philadelphia for his particular skill set.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same spot. I agree that Draymond's probably my favorite one. One other guy that I think is interesting, I haven't seen a Nuggets shoot around yet, is Fournier. I know he didn't play much the other night outside of the blowout, but I mean, there's a decent chance they start him over Quincy Miller tonight because they started Miller to guard Lance Stevenson last game, and you don't really need that with Chase Budinger playing shooting guard.
Touche.
So if he's starting, and I know Foy's banged up too, he had like a hamstring issue or an ankle issue or something last game. So I think Fournier could be a pretty interesting min play also. If he's starting, I think he's probably going to play like 35 minutes. They seem to just give the minutes to whoever's starting in that shooting guard spot. I was really surprised at how little Fournier played before that blowout the other night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree on Draymond 100%. I think he's the perfect guy for a min price tonight. He's just got to play. So, and it's a pretty good matchup for him in general, even though if he's going to have LeBron on him a ton, like, it's not the worst thing ever because LeBron's so much better of an off-the-ball defender than he is an on-the-ball defender that I think you can really get away with Draymond tonight. Even if he has a down game, he's probably going to make value and get you like 20 to 24 fantasy points or so.
Yeah.
The other thing about Draymond is a lot of his value is built in on rebounding, and that's why this matchup is better for him than it typically would be when you see a guy going up against LeBron or having to cover LeBron. The big thing for him will be if he can stay out of foul trouble. And I was just kind of looking up his typical foul rates, and they're not great. So that's the one big concern. He basically averages like 2.5 fouls every 20 minutes. So that's the big concern, is that he could get into foul trouble.
Last Friday he had 2 quick fouls. I can see the same thing happening tonight. But at minimum salary and for what Draymond likes to do, when you watch him play and you like have him rostered, it's nice watching him play because he, back for when he was at Michigan State playing point, he will get the rebound and automatic. Like he doesn't like immediately look for the outlet pass. He's looking to push the ball up the floor. Like he's dribbling and he does get some assists off of pushing the ball up the floor. So I think he's certainly just the guy that you want. For me, Jeremy Evans, watching him play last night, he played really well against the Lakers and another tasty matchup against the Sixers. And he's, after that performance last night and even like tonight, I think his minutes are guaranteed. Like he's going to get those 25 minutes no matter what. So in a fast-paced matchup, you have to consider him. Any Sixers love before, or first, I guess I should ask, Drew, we were both high on Gordon Hayward and Favors yesterday. I'm still high on Gordon, maybe not so much on Favors, just because if you can't dominate the Lakers, who can you dominate? Well, the Sixers. But for me, there are better options out there. Thoughts on Gordon and Favors tonight?
Yeah, I love Hayward. Favors, the one thing about Favors is like his price rose on Draft Street, where there's their big tournament today. So I was looking at him, but the price jumping up an extra K is a little bit frustrating. The other thing that you guys have talked about is just the minutes limit. That like he hasn't really gone beyond 30 since he came back from this hip issue, and that puts a little bit of a ceiling on him. So it's a little bit frustrating because I really like the matchup and I'd like to be able to use him because I think he'll do very well on a permanent basis. But I was really frustrated watching Ty Corbin last night ride the reserves. Even though I had Jeremy Evans and it was doing me a lot of good, I had Favors and Hayward on some other sites. And he rode the bench really hard late in that game. And that's the one thing. Corbin's a little bit unpredictable with usage, with guys' minutes and stuff. So that's the one thing that makes me a little bit more nervous about Favors. Hayward is the one guy that seems less prone to getting screwed around with by Corbin.
Less volatile is the word that you were looking for.
Yes.
And I found it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Scott, what about Burke?
I mean, I don't think I'll have much Burke. There's other guys in his price range on every site that I'm higher on if I'm going to go that route.
Such as?
The one like Rondo is 800 more than him on DraftKings, for instance, or Foye is 400 more than him on DraftKings. This is what I'm looking at right now. The one place I think he's really well priced is FanDuel. 5,100 is just really, really cheap for a starting point guard against the Sixers. That's probably the one place I would take him. Anywhere that like really penalizes turnovers and missed shots, he's just so hard to play. Like DraftDay and Draft Street, he's just not a guy that I really want to have in my lineup.
Yeah.
He can just rack up negative points for like a 4-minute stretch. And
I will say that if they're hitting their shots from outside, like his numbers go up dramatically just from assists. Like last night, I mean, he started kind of getting more fantasy points as they started hitting more, just because he's that swing guy that will find them on, for the kick out. So I think that he is, like you said, on FanDuel, a good play. However, on FanDuel, I'm just stuck on either one of the two Bucks point guards and Chris Paul. Like, I'm heavy on Chris Paul tonight. I know that he didn't do a whole lot against Philly, but he didn't have to, really. Wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did. So I think that for me, it's Paul and either Knight or Paul and Walters, depending on where I want to go. CP3 in the discussion at all for either of you?
Yeah. I think.
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you have to like his price everywhere. It didn't look like he was having any conditioning issues the other day. He only played 23 minutes, obviously, but it was a fast-paced 23 minutes, and he didn't look too winded or anything. I watched most of that game. And unless they come out and say that they're going to limit him to 30 minutes or something, which I kind of doubt they would, I don't see a reason why he can't get to 37-ish minutes if it's a close game, assuming Aldridge is playing and whatnot. I think he put up like 75 fantasy points on Portland the first time they played. My one concern would be if they just put Batum on him the entire game, which in that case I absolutely love Jamal Crawford in this game. That would be my one concern, but that doesn't even concern me that much with a player as good as Chris Paul.
Did you see where last night Batum was not guarding KD?
That was weird.
Wes Matthews?
Yeah. Did the coach give an explanation of that after the game? I didn't read any of the post game stuff after that.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see anything. They did go late in the game. They went back to Lillard on Reggie Jackson, and Reggie Jackson just killed him in the second half.
I know. I was loving it.
I was really high on Reggie Jackson yesterday, and I had him on Draft Street and on FanDuel, and I had him on one of my teams on DraftKings. And I got home, and he had like 0 points at halftime, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is going on?"
Yeah.
And in the first possession of the third quarter, I see Batum guarding him, and I'm like, "What?" Like just staring blankly at the screen, like, "What in the world has happened here?" I agree with Scott though. CP3, that doesn't concern me. Like I think he can handle Batum just fine. And Mike wrote in the rundown today for us that basically Paul's per game averages, based on his price on like Draft Street, DraftKings, and FanDuel, where his price is a little bit depressed. His per game averages, if you prorate it, he just needs like 28 minutes to hit value on those sites. So if you feel good about him getting 28 to 30 minutes, which I feel like that's a pretty good bet, I think he's a good play. And if he plays more minutes, there's a lot of upside.
You are turning me on right now, Drew. I love it when you talk nerdy to me. Oh gosh, 28 minutes. I'll see that 28 minutes, and he's playing at least 32 minutes. So, Skibo78 said in the chat, why would they roll out him for 30 minutes with the All-Star break nearing? Like, I don't think they would have rolled him out at all if they didn't expect him to at least go 30 minutes. Like, this is a game that they have to win, or not have to win, but they want to win to go into the. They want to go in the All-Star break ahead. Like, this is a team on fire, and I think even though it's kind of turned to Blake's team, I think Chris Paul tonight is going to get at least 32 minutes.
Anytime those teams that are like 2 through 5 in the West play each other, those are really huge games, because the difference between getting up to the 2 seed and down to the 5 seed is not only huge in terms of like home court advantage and stuff, but huge in terms of strength of opponent. So that's the reason. I mean, the Clippers are 2 games back of Portland in the loss column. This is a really big game with 50, so only 28 to play. I mean, that's why they'd run him out there for more than 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah, he was on pace to play 30 against the Sixers, too. All he needed was 6.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Obviously, they didn't need him for that in that game, but they were on pace to play him 7 minutes in every quarter. So
yeah, it was typical minutes usage for like last year whenever they had blown everybody. I mean, this was the minutes he was getting. Now with Rivers, it's a little different because he wants to play them more. But I didn't see like any red flags in there. As far as the Spurs go tonight, you've got Splitter, who's out. You've got Tony Parker, who is out. You've got Tim Duncan, whose price is still relatively high. And then you've got guys like Danny Green, who came off a pretty bad performance. Kojo Bellinelli's back. Manu is out. Patty Mills, probable. So, assuming Patty Mills plays, Scott, any chance you play Kojo tonight?
No, I'm a Patty Mills guy, so if I'm playing anyone from the Spurs, it's going to be Patty Mills.
I knew you'd say that. And that's what I was afraid of. It seems like these two guys, like you never know which one is going to get hot, at least recently. Like let me pull up their game logs. Drew, I'm guessing you're in the Patty Mills bandwagon too?
Well, I think he's the better play, but I'm always concerned about price, and Mills is pretty significantly more expensive than Joseph on most sites. So I would say between the two, just because of the price, I'd lean more towards Joseph. Joseph's minutes have been really, really stable since he's gotten into the starting lineup. So I'd probably go Joseph if I was deciding between the two, but really they're only going to come into play for me on like sites where there's not as many salary relief options abound.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them are anywhere near must plays tonight. I think you can do better at a lot of other positions than point guard as far as like really deep value guys.
I will say, if you're going to go stars and scrubs, it's not a bad option. Especially if your scrubs are going to be the big guys, like having on draft day, having a Walters and a Kojo in there. The same thing, I guess, could be said for DraftKings. Like I think Kojo is minimum salary on DraftKings, which is not bad for the amount of minutes that he is going to get tonight. Now, if you're talking about playing Nando DeColo, don't like that is a tournament play, and that's like, hey, I want to donate money to this site because they're great. That's what kind of a tournament play it is. So Danny Green, though, against this Boston team, I know his salary is down on draft day almost to where like you're almost forced into taking him. Scott, is that your fault that he's $67.50 on draft day? Good grief.
Yes, that is a spite pricing. No, I mean,
it's like if a player doesn't do well for you, you just lower their salary to where people have to play them so that they feel the same pain that you felt the day before.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's because that 40-point game against Washington dropped out of his recent games, and it has the like 5 and 11 or whatever it was in there. But I just don't trust him. He doesn't look like he's shooting the ball well right now. I know he was hot for those 2 games in a row where he was like 8 of 15 from 3, but I mean, I think he's like 1 of 10 or 1 of 9 over the last 2 games. I don't really love the matchup with Boston if it's going to be Gerald Wallace and Jeff Green on him, because one of the things that's nice for him is he's taller than a lot of the guys that guard him at times, and it really works out well for him to get a shot off. And I just really don't like the matchup. I don't like how Popovich is messing with the rotations. If I knew he was going to get 35 minutes, I would agree with you that he's a must-play, but I really don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about this Memphis team. Really, I mean, I don't think we need to talk about this Magic team. But Memphis, we'll say that Courtney Lee, revenge game factor alert, used to play for the Magic. Didn't he? Drew, you're acting like he didn't.
I don't think he played for the Magic.
He definitely did. He was on the Magic. He was on the Magic when they went to the finals with Dwight.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a rookie with the Magic. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's 4 teams ago, but you're right.
Drew looking at me all crazy and stuff.
He's been traded like 3 or 4 times already. He's only like 25.
So you have, among the Grizzlies options, are you comfortable with playing Calathis, Lee, Zebo, Gasol? Those are the 4 options. Which one of those are you comfortable with, Scott?
Anywhere Calathis is still really low in price, I don't mind him.
James Johnson also in play there.
Man, I would love them to just start James Johnson. That would be amazing. But obviously, we're not going to get that because Tayshaun Prince is entrenched. Lee, I mean, you know what you're going to get from Lee. You're going to get 25 fantasy points for whatever his price is. So, I mean, if you want 25 fantasy points, then take Courtney Lee.
What about Zebo against this Magic team?
That's the best play there. I think his price is just a little high for me because he's been playing so well. He's just not a guy I take when he's like really high priced like that. I usually wait for him to be like have a bad ankle for like 2 weeks and then play him when he finally gets healthy. So I don't have any problem with him. I think he's going to have a pretty good game tonight. He's just, for his price, he's not a guy I'm going to have a lot of unless I find a really good price somewhere.
Drew?
I would agree. I think his price, just scanning through my charts, his price looks pretty good on DraftDay at just over 12. I think that's a decent spot. There's opportunity cost if you want to go with some of the other big power forwards, but I don't mind that price. And then Star Street, that price, like right around 13, I don't think is too bad either. But again, for me, it's more about the opportunity cost of not being able to lock in like an Anthony Davis or one of the other big boys at power forward. So I would rank them in terms of the plays that I would use would be Calathis, then Gasol, then Courtney Lee, then Zebo,
then James Johnson.
The
one thing I will say,
he was great. It was great when he was like priced minimum salary. But now that like you're banking on like 24 minutes a game at like not minimum, but just below middle price, that's a little bit riskier for me.
Yeah. He averages about a fantasy point per minute. I think it was Dean on Twitter that said that off a back-to-back, maybe Prince doesn't play the amount of minutes that he normally does because he's kind of banged up. So that would be like the only case for me. And not even like if he's playing, but like if they say before the game that he does not play. That'll be the only reason why I take Johnson. And would be even more reason to take Courtney Lee for me as well.
Just looking at Tayshaun's numbers this year, he's averaging on 0 days rest 26.5 minutes per game, and for the season he's averaging 26.3.
So you're saying the chances of that are slim to none.
Yeah, so like for me it would be a similar situation where if he's ruled out, I agree, then we all get like Jimmy John's fever. But if he's not, I think we all have to just sit back and consider him, a play that has all the upside in the world, but we'll never get the minutes we want.
Yes, it is true. We never get the satisfaction that we want out of Jimmy John's. Leaves us unsatisfied. All right, some of these other games that we've got going on, the Bobcats and Nets. This is kind of like a gross game that I'll probably fade altogether, but tell me if there's anybody that I need to play. Kemba, Al-Jeff, MKG? Like, do I need to play anybody in those games?
Kemba got left the game with his Achilles issue last night, didn't he?
Did he?
I think so.
Mike had a note in the rundown about that. So
yeah,
that was the thing.
I played Kemba in a couple tournament lineups last night, and I'm pretty sure he left the game in the middle of the third.
Well, I thought it was because they were blowing him out, but he had already played 32 minutes by then.
Yeah, whenever he left in the third, he went back to the locker room.
Interesting.
He's listed as questionable.
Well, so, I mean, if you can find Sessions really cheap, I don't think that's the worst play in the world. I like Al-Jeff. I pretty much always like Al-Jeff because he's amazing, but I don't particularly think he's a great play tonight in comparison to other guys in his price range. I'd rather pay a little more and get Davis or Love on multi-position sites. Probably rather pay a little less and get Drummond on center-only sites. So
I just pulled up. Jefferson has 40 or more draft streak points, which is the most penalized site with negatives. 40 or more draft streak points in 6 or 7 games. That's absurd.
Yeah, he doesn't miss. He's amazing.
Scott is the big Al-Jeff fanboy. This Rockets Wizards game, for me, like, I thought it would be up in the like 210 to 215 range. The over-under is at 203, with the Rockets being 9-point favorites. Can you explain that to me? Like, I don't mind using, if you want to use in a tournament, John Wall tonight after a terrible game against Memphis last night. But if you want to use Wall or Beal or Nene probably, looking at some of the sites, is the guy on the Wizards I'm most comfortable with using. I don't mind. But why is this game so low scoring according to Vegas?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. That was one of the first things I looked at when I looked at lines today. It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, at a 203 with the Rockets being 9-point favorites, do you have, like, if you would have asked me at halftime if I'm going to roster Harden for the next game, I would have said yes. But then
on Sportsbook, for what it's worth, it's up to 205.5.
Oh, well, I'm guessing it's because all the action came in on the under. I mean, on the over.
I like Beal in this one quite a bit, though. I think he's underpriced quite a few places because of that minutes limit he was on for a while. He had that huge game last night. He looked great.
Couldn't miss.
Yeah.
Except at the end.
He's still priced he's right around like Randy Foye, who I'm kind of torn on today as far as like his injury issues and stuff like that. So I think he's a pretty comparable play to Foye, who a lot of people seem to be on Foye over Beal.
Yeah, I think that I'm on Foye over Beal, but I like them both. But I think old Randy has a bounce back game tonight. I mean, playing against the Timberwolves. Drew, are you laughing because I called him old Randy?
I'm laughing at the way you said Randy. Just it had Austin Powers flashback.
I did not know. It was like a Southern. It wasn't a British. Do I make you Randy, baby? Do I? Spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch. So
I did just see a beat writer tweet that Foye is going to play tonight, but he's far less than 100%.
Oh, that's not good. Well, I'm on Bill then over Foye, and I'm also on Fournier over Foye. Oh.
The other note on that Rockets Wizards game is Patrick Beverley's a game time decision, and if he's out, I think everybody's going to be enamored with Jeremy Lin, which I wouldn't say you shouldn't be, but I think that would really help James Harden a lot too. Like, Harden's price is down, and he is getting screwed because Jeremy Lin's playing so well that they're playing Lin and Beverley in the backcourt instead of Harden. Like, that's what happened in that Minnesota game, and that's why Harden's minutes are down a little bit. So I would say that if Beverley doesn't play, that could unlock some value for Houston.
Yeah, his price tag is just still kind of high. I would rather Beverley not play, to be honest. That'd be nice. Give us a few more options. Dwight in this game talked about like the ability or non-ability of the Wizards. Like, Dwight at all? We didn't mention him in the big boys combo.
It's just so pricey. Like,
yeah,
why?
He's priced like he should be scoring 50 every game, and he's not.
Yeah, he's scoring like 40. But he could score 50 in this game. I don't think it's out of the ordinary.
No, I mean, realistically, Dwight Howard could score 50 in every game. I don't know why he doesn't. I feel like he should more than could.
All right. This Timberwolves Nuggets game, we talked about the point guard issues with Denver, point guard, shooting guard, small forward. The questions for me, here are the guys that I will be targeting outside of Fournier. You probably talked me off of old Randy, but like that being said, the past few times that I've done this, that person just goes off. Josh Smith. Before that, who was it? Kevin Love. Someone else
with all those same guys.
Yeah. So I feel like that's going to be the case with old Randy tonight. Anyways, I'll probably play it safe, and if Fournier is starting, we'll play him. Fareed is the other option for me for this Nuggets team because of where his price is. I don't think you have to. Like I said, I'd much rather kind of go with starting your studs, power forwards, big guys, or the Milwaukee players like Zaza. On the other side, I'm high on K-Love. I'm just not that high on everybody else. Like even Budinger is kind of meh to me. So tell me why I'm wrong. Is it because they're supposed to score 108 points tonight that I need to consider some more Timberwolves players?
I mean, I don't mind Budinger when he's close to minimum. You know he's going to get 30 minutes. He's been chucking. He's been rebounding better than his career average, which is nice. Yeah, that's really the only one I'm really considering outside of Kevin Love. I don't know if anyone else is even that interesting. I mean, Corey Brewer is like the most inconsistent guy in the world. He took like 300 shots one game and then sometimes takes two. So,
Drew, any Timberwolves players that you're kind of looking at other than K-Love or Budinger?
Budinger would probably be the guy, but again, there's a lot of options, so he's not near the top of my list, but that would probably be the other guy. The one thing I would say on Fareed is that guy has some of the widest home road splits of like anybody in the NBA for his career. He averages at home 12.6 points and 8.9 rebounds a game, and on the road 8.5 points and 6.4 rebounds. And the big reason is he plays 5 minutes less per game on the road because he fouls so frequently on the road. And that's one of the weird things where you can see some home road splits that make sense because like guys tend to get more calls at home. And Fareed has 53 personal fouls in his career in 528 minutes on the road and 53 personal fouls in 664 minutes in his career at home. So I always avoid Fareed on the road.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Then you just talked me off of them. Thanks. Last game before we get into the rapid fire. By the way, Scott, nice job last night. I think I barely pulled out one. Maybe I had two. I turned it off when like the first three were already completed, and I was like 0 for 4 at the time. But nice job last night.
You went for the reverse. The reverse pick perfect 5.
Yes.
That's just as hard mathematically, so you should pat yourself on the back for that.
If only. This Pistons-Cavaliers game, we talked about the Cavs. Didn't really talk a whole lot about the Pistons other than Drummond. But as far as Jay Smoove and Jennings, we also talked about Singler, so we don't talk about him. But specifically, Jennings, Smoove, and Monroe. Any interest in those guys? For me, like Monroe is out of the question. The other two guys are in question. It's just they're kind of expensive right now from their recent performance. But, I mean, it's a high-scoring game tonight. This is a game, I think, that Josh Smith would be the optimal play over Jennings. Am I wrong or right for thinking that, Scott?
I'm probably not going to play any Pistons other than maybe Drummond, just because I really don't know how their rotations are going to go. Like the first game with the new coach, I know Drummond was in a little bit of foul trouble in the first half, and Monroe played quite a bit. Jennings' minutes were down. Smooths were still there, so he's probably like I don't want to use the word safest at all, so I'll use most minutes consistent. I just don't particularly like the prices on any of them. I think you can just do a lot better for a little more or almost as good for less.
All right. Let's get into Auto Crush wants us to talk about the Knicks. Drew, what do you have to say about the Knicks?
I think Carmelo's a good play, like good high floor 50-50 type play on any site but Draft Street, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think he's in play. The Tim Hardaway Jr. injury, if he's out, that would free up more minutes for JR. So he wouldn't be a bad tournament gamble. Those are kind of the only two guys. I wouldn't touch Chandler. I know Mike brought up his value, and I think he's safe not to kill you, but I don't think he's got a good chance at hitting value against Cousins.
Yeah. Even Amare, who I was high on last week, I don't think I would even trust him tonight. So I'll probably be fading the Knicks. With that being said, let's get to this rapid fire. Scott, you can't talk because you're the one who has tried to trick us into picking the wrong players. So always fun to see if you can outsmart Scott. And as soon as I started bragging about outsmarting Scott, he starts throwing in matchups like Budinger versus who was the lineup yesterday?
Something was with Mike Dunleavy yesterday.
Oh, it was Dunleavy versus who was the other guy?
I'm trying to remember who it was, but I had so many people comment on that matchup. I'm looking right now.
It was bad.
But I know Dunleavy must have won it.
It was like a .25.
Yeah, it was Dunleavy versus PJ Tucker.
And
PJ
Tucker
Oh,
won.
that ended up being a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both guys did well.
Yeah, I know that Scott was just like on cloud 9 after the huge DK night and then figuring out that he had tricked everybody. But Kevin Love versus Anthony Davis.
I'll go Anthony Davis.
I'll go K-Love. I know he's banged up, but in such a nice game, I'm starting Anthony Davis over Kevin Love because of salary cap reasons, not because of fantasy point reasons. Curry versus James.
LeBron.
I think LeBron's the safer option as well, even though it's on the road. Favors versus MCW. Why would you do this to us, Scott?
That's so
just
disgusting.
painful. That's just really painful. I'll say Favors, but I don't feel great about it.
Foy over Beal. Well. Looks like Scott may have given us a hint to we need to pick tonight by saying that Foy is not 100%. So thank you, Scott. I'll be choosing Bradley Beal now. Ha. Joke's on you, mister. Drew?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm not going to be Randy tonight.
Oh, yeah, baby. Zaza versus Pat.
I will go Zaza.
Yeah, you got to go Zaza. This is the booby trap for people that Amir is still questionable. We don't know if he's going to play tonight. If he doesn't play, though, I certainly think that Patrick Patterson is in play. Loves those.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think it's closer, but I think I'd probably still take Zaza.
Zaza's going to get. The one worry I have about Zaza is that early in the season they rode him really hard, and he got hurt.
He broke his foot.
Yeah. So I think I want him to get all the minutes tonight. I just don't think they will. I think Raduljica is going to get a lot of minutes, unfortunately. But Zaza is certainly in play, and we'll see about this Pat news. It will certainly be interesting. And on the other side, I really wish that Paul Millsap was cheaper, because I think this might be a good matchup for him. His price is still really high, and he's just not performing like he did right after Horford went out. So that's why I will not be taking Millsap. However, if someone wants to drop his price, holla at your boy, because I will want to take him. Thanks again to Drew Dinkmeyer from Roto Experts. Check them out, rotoexperts.com. Click on the Photoshop LeBron D. Wade ad with he and Mike Leone to get signed up for that. And also to Scott Malwig, you can go to draftday.com every day and click on the strategy section to read his day before tomorrow article. Gentlemen, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, Scott, would you like to say anything? I mean, don't be rude. Oh, you're waiting for me to play the music before you say something.
Let's fill the bathtub full of sweat.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, this is definitely what I was waiting for.
Oh yeah, we like to thank all the brothers and the sisters out there who tuned in to Fantasy Insiders TV. Oh yeah. We make lineups go down smooth. You heard? All right, that'll do it. No more from this guy. Tune in. I don't know when. Tune in sometime. We'll see you.